All right, let's talk about the state of technology right now, in 2025. Because it really feels like it all comes down to this one central, kind of fascinating paradox. For every amazing leap forward we make, we also seem to take this equally strange and sometimes pretty dangerous stumble backward.
And that's the big question, isn't it? It really makes you wonder. We're surrounded by all these promises of a smarter future, but is that what we're actually getting? Or are we just making things more complicated? So let's really dig into that.
And this just perfectly sums it up. On the one hand, you've got startups raising millions, promising that AI is going to automate all our most boring office tasks. And then on the other hand, you have Taco Bell's drive-thru AI, which, get this, when a customer tried to skip it, it completely glitched out and ordered almost 20,000 cups of water. You've got the incredible promise versus the hilariously clumsy reality.
Okay, so let's start with AI, because it really feels like we're watching its awkward teenage years play out in real time, you know? It's full of this unbelievable potential, but at the same time, it's just so prone to these embarrassing public mistakes.
And this is how much people believe in the promise: $100 million. That's what a single Japanese AI startup just got, all to solve the headache of paperwork. So yeah, the money and the confidence, they're definitely there.
But here's where things get complicated. Even a giant like Meta, after pouring over $14 billion into one data partner, still has to turn around and rely on that partner's competitors to train its AI models. It just goes to show you, building this top-tier AI is so insanely expensive and complex that not even Meta can do it all by themselves.
So what you've got to understand is that AI today isn't just one simple story. No way. It's this messy, contradictory mix of everything. We're talking massive financial bets, hilarious public blunders, these tangled corporate partnerships, and, as we're about to see, some really, really sophisticated threats.
And this is where that paradox really gets dark, because the same generative AI that can write you a poem is now being used by cybercriminals to write way more convincing phishing emails. They're using it to create malware that constantly changes its code to avoid being detected. The power of the tool is literally being turned against us.
And that brings us right to our next big topic, this new kind of digital arms race. One where the lines between what's meant to protect you and what's meant to attack you are getting seriously, dangerously blurry.
So, to really get the stakes here, you need to know this term: zero-click spyware. And believe me, this is the stuff of nightmares. You don't have to click a shady link. You don't download a weird file. Your phone, your computer, it can get compromised just by you receiving a message. That's it.
And this isn't some theory. This actually happened. WhatsApp just confirmed an attack that worked exactly like this. The attackers found a flaw in WhatsApp, then they chained it together with a totally separate bug in Apple's operating system, and bam! Together, they could take over a phone or a Mac and the user would have no idea. And this quote, it just nails the new strategy here. Hackers aren't always building their own scary tools from scratch anymore. Now, they're taking the very software that's designed to protect us, and they're turning it into a weapon.
I mean, think about it for a second. If an attack is using trusted IT software that's supposed to be on your network, how do you even spot it? It's like a burglar breaking in while wearing a security guard's uniform. This lets them just waltz past the usual defenses and stay hidden for way, way longer.
So, with all this chaos happening, from clumsy AI to new cyber threats, it's probably no surprise that governments are starting to step in. And that brings us to our third theme, this global push for regulation. The only problem is, nobody seems to agree on how to do it.
And right away, you see this huge split. The EU is going full steam ahead with its Digital Services Act, which is this massive set of rules for online content. But in the US, the FTC is basically warning companies, hey, don't you dare apply those European rules over here if they mess with American ideas of free speech. It's a real international tug-of-war.
And the heat in the US isn't just about foreign laws. The new FTC chairman is also taking a hard look at the algorithms we use every single day, like Gmail's spam filter, digging into claims of political bias. That black box is finally being pried open. And you know, these regulations have immediate, very real effects. Look at this. In the UK, a new law rolled out that requires age checks for adult websites. And look what happened? A huge, visible drop in traffic to those sites. This is a real-world consequence right there in the data. And all of this really points to our final idea for today. For all its incredible power, the complex tech world we've built, well, it might be surprisingly fragile. It's resting on some foundations that have some pretty serious hidden risks.
Case in point, Verizon. One little vague software issue was all it took to knock out service for tons of customers all across the country. It's just the stark reminder of how one tiny glitch in a super complex system can cause these massive cascading failures.
And that same kind of fragility, it exists in the market too. I mean, NVIDIA is the undisputed king of AI chips, right? A huge success story. But then you look at their revenue, and nearly 40% of it comes from just 2 customers. 2! That's an unbelievable amount of risk packed into just 2 baskets.
You have to ask the question, right? The growth is incredible, but the foundation is kind of narrow. What happens to the stock, to the market, to the whole AI supply chain if customer A suddenly decides to build their own chips? It's a really shaky position to be in.
Millions. It's a number we hear all the time in the tech world. Millions of users, millions of dollars. But this number, this one represents something totally different. This represents a catastrophic failure of security. That number stands for millions of Social Security records. We're talking numbers in everything. That a whistleblower says a government department just uploaded to an unsecure cloud server. This isn't just another corporate data breach. This is a potential national security crisis, and it just highlights how fragile the security around our most sensitive data really is.
So we've looked at awkward AI, a new cyber arms race, huge regulatory fights, and this surprisingly fragile system we all depend on. So what do we do with all this? Where does it leave us? Let's try to connect the dots.
Because this is really the ultimate question, right? It's the core of that tech paradox of 2025. Every new connection we build, every new layer of complexity we add, well, it brings both more power and another potential point of failure. The promise is a stronger, smarter world. But the risk is that we're actually engineering a much more brittle one, where one tiny crack can bring the whole thing tumbling down. And that's something we're thinking about.